Hi, everyone. How are we? I'm sure many of you will remember this gentleman right here, Chad Doerman, the infamous body cam footage that we all saw play out last June. Yeah, it was last June, 2023. He took the life of his sons. Let's watch this body camera footage real quick.
Where's he at?
And just to give a warning, this is very sensitive content, everyone, so viewer discretion is advised.
Shooter's on the porch.
Get him right here. You got him on the porch.
We've asked. That's the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Stand up with your hands up!
We know we got a visual in the mail. You're not showing his hands, not following commands.
Stand up now!
I'm not showing hands or following commands. His name is Chad Doerman. Chad Doerman.
I know, but we can't.
If you need first aid and he's not complying, you know he's a shooter, shoot him.
We gotta find cover first. We ain't no good if we ain't safe ourselves. Hey, no. We need to come from this side where we can see him. Don't take cover behind her. We see him. We're going to approach from this side. We got cover. Right here.
6 cover, 29 and 63 type out.
Show us your fucking hands now. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up now. Stand up. Stand the fuck up.
EMS to stage and air carriers going to go ahead and fly whenever any units can advise.
Get your hands up here. Cover 21. It's in there.
The judge can confirm that there's people that need first aid, and that's the shooter. He's not complying. They need to take care of the
I got it.
victims. They have to shoot him and shoot him.
Man, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. I'm completely sober. Never did drugs a day
63,
in my
we're
life.
21. Get the EMS over here.
Well, I did drugs when I was little, but I don't do drugs now. I'm sober. I'm not trying to fight you. Yowlin,
63.
get your butt inside. Yowlin, get your butt inside.
We on primary?
Now.
29, we got 3 kids down.
3 kids down, 16 feet up.
Yowlin.
63, we're 21.
Knock
Have
it off.
EMS respond over here.
You're clear, they're being advised. Robert 34, just started mass casualty response. 63, do you want them to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard.
He took my life from me! My life!
What are you doing, man?
Hey, pretty copy all this.
Can I roll over? I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
You got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it. I ain't mad. I ain't nothing. Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think he'll bite you. Just don't reach for him and try to grab him and pet him. He won't bite you.
What's going on, man?
Nothing. Can I stand up? It's kind of uncomfortable.
I'm gonna
I
get
ain't
you
gonna
here
do
in a
nothing. I ain't
second.
running away. You can do whatever you want.
Here. You the only one else inside the house?
What?
You the only one else inside the house?
Yeah.
Sit down right here.
My daughter, she ran over to the fire department.
Sit down.
It's my stepdaughter.
Put him in the cage.
On June 15th of 2023 in Monroe Township of Ohio, Clayton Hunter and Chase Doerman, ages 7, 4, and 3 respectively, were shot and killed at their home. The 34-year-old wife of the suspect was also injured in the attack, and her daughter, the suspect's stepdaughter, was held at gunpoint but escaped unharmed. Police arrived and arrested 32-year-old Chad Doerman, the father of the 3 victims, and charged him with murder, assault, and kidnapping. Doerman pleaded not guilty on June 23rd. On August the 2nd, just this past week, Doerman was back in court and he pleaded guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder and 2 counts of felonious assault as part of the plea deal that also allowed him to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Clermont County prosecutors are holding a press conference today. It's said that they're going to be releasing some more information in regards to the case, and I'm not really sure exactly what they all could release, but it could be that there's some interrogations and whatnot. Now, one thing to note is that this plea deal that he took, it was agreed upon by the surviving victims. So the boy's mother, Laura, did get a say in that, and that was huge to me. I think for her, it was a matter of putting this all to, just kind of putting it all to rest so that she could get some closure in this case. I think she may also speak at this press conference here today as well.
And I'm going to hand that off to Sheriff Leahy.
As about an hour ago, he is still housed in our facility. The judge is working, his office is working on a warrant to convey. As soon as that is done, we will shift him immediately to CRC.
As you are all aware, in June of 2023, the Doerman family consisted of Laura Doerman, Chad Doerman, husband and wife, Alexis, who was 14 years old at the time. She is Laura's daughter. And then the 3 boys, Clayton, Hunter, and Chase. Some of the background and why we think it was important to give you this information is to try to put some context in terms of what was going on here before the murders. Alexis has always been an outstanding student, very dedicated to her studies. You may have heard her mention in court on Friday. She loves softball, and she's a fantastic softball player from what I've been told. Was even on the All-Star team last year. Clayton, Hunter, and Chase are all happy, active little boys. They love baseball, monster trucks, fishing, go-karting, and on their property and hanging out with their family members. Chad Doerman worked full-time as a member of the Insulators Union while Laura stayed at home with the boys and homeschooled Clayton. The plan was, and they made this decision as a family, that Laura would homeschool the children. Prior to June of 2023, and I know this has been of some interest and some inquiry, what was going on with his family? Was, were there drugs involved? Were there prior incidents of violence? There were no reports, no prior reports, or any calls made to law enforcement for any event, any disturbance at the Doerman residence on Laurel Lindale Road. From the outside view, from the inside view, this was just a normal family that seemed very happy. We're going to talk about the days leading up to the murders. 5 days before, on June 10th, 2023, just a normal day. Chad Doerman takes the 3 boys on an outing to a local dirt track to watch some races, and they had a boys' day together. Happy, content, with no indication of any trouble to come. He discussed with Laura that she and Alexis have a little shopping day together, a little girls' day, little boys' day, and that was done. And that evening, the defendant did not report any issues or problems with sleeping. On Sunday, June 11th, the defendant takes the boys fishing, just the defendant and the 3 boys. No reports of any abnormal behavior on his part. Later, after the murders occurred, Doerman provided conflicting statements about whether he slept well or if at all on Sunday night. Monday, 3 days before the killings, defendant goes to work as usual Monday morning. His coworkers do not notice anything unusual or abnormal about his behavior or his words. He later, again, gave conflicting statements about whether he slept or whether he didn't sleep too good that evening, Monday, June 12, 2023. Tuesday, June 13th, he goes to work again as usual Tuesday morning. After work, normal conduct, normal behavior. He had some problem with his vehicle's headlights, and he works on those headlights. Later, again, after the killings, the defendant gave conflicting statements about whether he slept Tuesday night, but eventually indicates and admitted that he didn't sleep too good that night either, maybe just a few hours. And you'll see why this is significant as we go through this. The day before the murders, Wednesday, June 14th, 2023. The defendant wakes his stepdaughter up before he leaves for work, which is a highly unusual thing to do. He typically left for work at 4 or 5 in the morning. He wakes her up and tells her and apologizes for whatever I have done to you and for anything I've ever done to hurt you. Again, unusual, but will become meaningful in context as we know how the events unfolded later. Go ahead. Again, he's at work. And these co-workers, bosses, were all interviewed extensively by law enforcement, by the members of the Claremont County Sheriff's Office, and they report nothing was observed unusual about Doerman on that day. Just normal work day, normal behavior. The night before Chad Doerman murdered his children, June 14th, 2023, it was normal. He went as he did and coached his boys, or actually Coach Clayton. He coached third base that evening. The entire family went to the ball game. There were no indicators that anything this horrible was about to occur. Later, some folks did notice that perhaps while coaching third base, he seemed a little distracted, but nothing concrete, nothing you could latch onto to gauge in any fashion what was about to occur. Again, later to law enforcement, he gave multiple reports that he couldn't sleep at all the night before he killed his kids. The day of the murders, June 15th, 2023. The defendant gets up, goes to work, arrives at about 7 a.m. On his way to work, and we know this because we have his phone and we got all his phone records and all his search history. On his way to work, he searches on YouTube for a song titled Happy in Hell. I'd never heard of that song before this, but I've unfortunately become acquainted with it and the lyrics. Go ahead. I'm not going to read them, but here they are. I don't know who wrote it.
Colt Ford.
I know Colt Ford sang it.
Right.
Who did?
Colt, but go to the prior screen, please.
Sorry.
Colt Ford.
Colt Ford. I don't know who wrote it. I know it was recorded and performed by Colt Ford, who I don't know who that is either. Thursday morning. Again, the day of the murder. The defendant's boss does notice something abnormal about his behavior, but nothing to the point where he was alarmed to make a report or to call anyone. The defendant leaves work at around 9:30 a.m. and goes to Kroger off of Beach Mountain 5 Mile. And again, we know all this because we have his phone records. We know his locations. We know he's speaking with folks on the phone. He's sending messages. 9:42 a.m. And again, some of this is known from the Kroger's parking lot video and the interior video of Kroger. 9:42, he arrives at the Kroger parking lot. 9:44, he enters Kroger. He's in the aisle of the vitamins and supplements. He walks over to the little clinic. And the reason he went to the little clinic is because his mother suggested he go there. He expressed to her, not to Laura, that he was having some confusing feelings. We're going to tell you and emphasize that the little clinic, as good as it is, cannot, as we understand it, it is not the right place to go for serious problems that you may feel you're having psychologically. Anyway, he walks to the little clinic at less than 2 minutes pass, and he leaves without speaking to anyone at the little clinic. So why he went there and why he immediately left after a minute and a half, we can't answer that. We don't know. This is him. Him walking in. I can't tell.
He arrives and will park.
This is 5 or 10 minutes. We're not going to play it. We can just sit through it.
Can you use the mouse to fast forward?
But again, this will all be in the information we provide and release. That's him entering from the top. The same clothes he was wearing when he killed his sons a few hours later. We need to take out these images of other folks. It's him. Green shirt, blue jeans. It is noteworthy while we're going through this that despite the fact that his mother suggested he go to the little clinic, she never alerted Laura, never called 911 on his behalf, never called a crisis hotline, did nothing.
Did he only say confusing feelings? Did he
Let me run through this. I might take some questions afterwards. Thank you.
We know what he's looking at there?
Do not. I believe this is the little clinic counter.
Do we know what he purchased that day?
Nothing to our knowledge.
Or what he asked at the counter?
There's no one there.
So he leaves the counter. So he drives home. On the way home, he stops at a 16-foot light, goes out to the shed behind the house. The family then arrives from running some errands, and the boys, happy to see their father, run to say hello to him. Just a normal afternoon or a normal morning, other than he came home a little bit early that day. He plays with the boys while Laura makes lunch. While eating lunch, oddly, the defendant says to Laura that this will be my last good meal. Having no information, no idea what Chad was contemplating, Laura begins to worry that this is a statement he may be contemplating suicide. Shortly before he kills his kids, Doerman calls his father and makes the statement that Clayton is going to be the hardest one. And down below, these are it's an excerpt from Doerman's phone records that show the telephone call that was made. Between around 1 p.m. and 3:30, the defendant spends the afternoon doing yard work, playing with the kids. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing to alert Laura that she needed to do something to protect the family. There's no information available to her. 3:30 to 3:45, he begins to read the Bible to Hunter. He's walking around the house with the Bible, mumbling, "Chad knows what's right. Chad knows what's right." Shortly before 4 p.m., he gets into the gun safe, leaving it unlocked. Laura says, "You were scaring me." Again, highly unusual behavior. And Chad says, "I'm just playing around." Our position is he did this to, again, allay any fears or concerns that may build up in her about her safety, his safety, or the safety of the boys or Alexis. So he actively deceived her. 4 p.m. He's telling Clayton, Hunter, and Chase that he loves them and they did nothing wrong, and that they are the best boys ever, knowing he's about to kill them. Around 4 p.m. on that day of the killing, the defendant and Laura and all three boys go into the master bedroom, playing, have lunch, a little tired, lie down, concerned that vaguely in the back of her mind, he's going to do something to hurt himself. And suddenly, after lying down, the defendant jumps up, grabs the 22 rifle from the safe, and terror fills the room. As Laura is screaming, the boys are screaming, Laura is frightened that he's about to kill himself. They're all trying to encourage him, telling him that they love him and beg him not to kill himself. Laura takes the phone out to call 911 to get some help there for Chad, who she believes is about to kill himself. He grabs her phone, throws it across the room, and tells her it's too late. He's not going to kill himself. It is too late to save those boys. And then what I can only imagine, well, I can't imagine. Takes the rifle, points it at Hunter, and shoots him multiple times. Laura sees this. Alexis sees this. Clayton sees this. Chase sees this. Laura screams to the other children to run while she tries to render aid and eventually does call 911 after Hunter has been shot. Hunter was shot in the right arm, right torso, stomach area, and twice in the right side of his head. twice in the right side of his head, we believe, with the final 2 shots to ensure that Hunter was dead. All right, you're going to hear a couple 911 calls. And I ask you, in your discretion and your sensibility for the privacy and dignity of the family, to limit, as you see fit, what is disseminated to the public. Go ahead.
I can't tell what's happening, ma'am. I need you to calm down and tell me what's happening. Help me, God, help me. Ma'am. He's hurt. He's hurt, God. He's hurt. My baby. What is happening? Hey, come on, run. Run. Ma'am, what is happening?
Pause for a second. You hear the male voice. That is Chad telling Laura to get off. She is fighting to save her children.
I can't tell what's happening, ma'am. I need you to calm down and tell me what's happening. Help me, God, help me. Ma'am. He's hurt. He's hurt, God. He's hurt. My baby. What is happening? Hey, come on, run. Run. Ma'am, what is happening? Hello? Hello? If anybody can hear me. Hello?
Yeah, it's enough. We'll go to the next slide. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyway, Hunter was removed from the house by Laura. She tried to save his life. When you hear Laura tell him to run, Clayton runs out the back door. The defendant gives chase to Clayton. Alexis runs after the defendant in an effort to save Clayton. The unspeakable bravery of that, I cannot comprehend. But that's what this little girl did. While she's running to try to save Clayton, she observes the defendant raise his rifle, fire several shots, striking Clayton from some 50 or 70 yards distance. Clayton's down, and the defendant walks up to him calmly and executes him with 2 bullets to the head. So after Alexis sees this, she knows that Chase is still running around crying. She hears him. She runs back into the house to grab Chase. She grabs him, flees the residence, and begins to run across the yard out towards the street with the intent to go to the firehouse, which is, in close proximity to protect him. This is a Ring doorbell from a neighboring residence. So go ahead and play that, please. The please, oh, I'm sorry, that's fine. The please don't shoot me is Alexis, as Doerman is pointing the rifle to her head as she is holding Chase and is compelled to put him down. Alexis sees Chase. He runs to the trash cans in the driveway and attempts to hide from the defendant, 3-year-old boy hiding from his father. Alexis runs to get help. At some point, the defendant points the gun at Chase's head and fires it, but the magazine is empty, so it's just a click, as I said the other day in court. At some point, he reloads. Laura, protecting Chase, is physically fighting with the defendant. As I said, and as you're aware, the defendant bit Laura. In a desperate attempt to save Chase, she places her thumb over the barrel of the rifle and took that projectile in an effort to save Chase. But unfortunately, the defendant was not to be deterred. He prevailed in the struggle, had control of the weapon, and executed Chase in front of Laura. Laura's, at some point, we know, returns to where Hunter is in the side yard where she brought him out of the house. And these photographs, it's the side yard where Doerman was sitting with the side steps, the side entrance to the house. Those steps where Doerman was sitting when deputy sheriffs arrived. She's, again, trying to resuscitate, give aid to Hunter. And the defendant walks out to the field where he murdered Clayton, picks up his dead body of his 7-year-old son, and brings it back and lies it down next to Hunter. Then he brings Chase over and lies him down next to Hunter's body and Clayton's body, all while Laura is right there trying to render aid. You're familiar with these aerials, that this is essentially the area where he laid the bodies. If you see the sidewalk on the, right here, that's the sidewalk leading up to the side entrance and the steps where the defendant was sitting when police arrived. And that's the area where he laid the bodies of Clayton and Chase. All right. 5 minutes after the first 911 call made by Laura, and we don't know why it was disconnected, she makes a second call to 911. And again, I would ask you to exercise the same common decency and discretion when playing these. Thank you. Go ahead.
Doerman County Dispatch, Chicago.
Hey, guys, thanks for playing. Where's that at?
1965 Laurel Lindale.
So it's at the Laurel Firehouse.
It's just north of the Laurel Firehouse.
Just north of the Laurel Firehouse.
North, right at the intersection of,
Give me that address. Give me that address one more time.
1965 Laurel Lindale.
1965 Laurel Lindale. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. 911, where's your emergency? Can you hear me?
That's enough for now. You will get the whole call. Thank you. 4:26 p.m. Deputy Sparks, Pub with Claremont County Sheriff's Office arrive. So you know, this is some distance away. And they were responding with lights and sirens at a very rapid speed. Caring more about being dispatched to this horrible scene than their own safety. They get there and they, well, here you go. Just watch this.
Where's he at?
It's shooter's down the bench.
Get him right here. You got him on the floor.
We've asked, that's the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Stand up with your hands up! Stand up now!
They just Chad Doerman.
I know, but we can't.
If you're wanting first aid, if you're not complying, you go to the shooter.
You gotta find cover first. We ain't no good if we ain't safe ourselves. Hey. We need to come from this side where we can see it. Come take cover behind it. We see him. We're going to approach from this side. We got cover. It's right here.
629 and 53 type back.
Show us your fucking hands now. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up now. Stand up. Stand up. Up. Get your hand. Come on, stand there.
There's people who can just say that that's the shooter. It's not complying. They have to show them that shooter.
The business over. 63, we're going one. Get the EMS over here.
Sober. I'm not trying to put you.
63.
Get your butt inside. Yeah, get your butt inside.
We on primary?
29, we got 3 main now.
They just down.
63, we're 21. Have EMS respond over here.
You're clear, they're being advised.
Robert 34, start of mass past due.
63, do you want to respond to the Laurel and Dale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard. What are you doing, man?
All this.
Now roll over. I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
You got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Fire, that's it. I ain't nothing. Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think I'll don't reach for him and try to grab him, pet him, or I ain't gonna bite you.
What's going on, man?
Can I stand up? Stand up.
I'm gonna
I
get
ain't
you
gonna
here
get
in a
I
second.
know you can do whatever you want.
Here. You the only one else inside the house?
What?
You the only one else inside the house?
Yeah.
Sit down right here.
My daughter, she ran her to the fire department.
Sit down.
It's my stepdaughter.
Put him in that cage.
couple things. These deputy sheriffs, they face dangerous situations every day. And they went fearlessly in the face of this scene where they know people were being shot. And they are to be commended, as is all law enforcement, for the acts of bravery they display every day. And we thank you. This screen here, as you recall, I earlier said that after the killings, defendant went over into the field and picked up Clayton. This is Clayton's blood. He slung him over his shoulder and carried him back and laid him down in the side yard. And this is all confirmed with DNA evidence. So there's no question that it's Clayton's blood. First responders and deputies on emergency scenes do what they typically do. They render aid. Deputy Sparks carries Chase just a short distance before he realizes Chase has died and gently lays him down on the ground. They cover the boys up with sheets. I've been to a lot of crime scenes. I don't expect to see sheets this long. So Hunter is carried to the life squad. That's why he ended up there. Chase is carried through the yard, most of the yard by the deputy, and Clayton remained where the defendant placed him after killing him. Tell them I did it, take me to jail. The defendant is driven in custody to the sheriff's office for an interview. It was a very lengthy interview process where the defendant initially acted like he had no idea that his children had been shot, playing a game. But we have some clips from that we would like you to see. Notably here, when asked the names and ages of his children, he gives Hunter's name first, Clayton's name second, although Clayton's the oldest, and Chase's name third. And as you already know, that's the order in which he killed them. Can we get more volume? Oh, I thought you had a remote or something. Well, let's move on. We know what it says. Hopefully the audio quality will be better when you get it. During the interview, the defendant did acknowledge that he had been having difficulty sleeping or working leading up to the murders because he knew what he was going to do. All right. As you can see, among these statements the defendant made to the detectives, Detective Mike Ross and Mike Green, that because Laura tried to stop him from murdering these boys, that he should have killed her first.
Do you remember your wife trying to stop him from shooting you? Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. As you know, the criminal justice process, he was charged initially through Claremont County Municipal Court, held on I believe, a $20 million bond, and subsequently indicted by the Claremont County Grand Jury on the 21 counts, 9 counts of aggravated murder, 3 for each boy. Now, at this point, I'm going to ask Laura Barron Allen to handle this part of it. So we're going to talk about the not guilty by reason of insanity defense and the serious mental illness defense. And she can walk you through that. Thank you.
So in March of this year, the defendant filed a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. In Ohio, in order to prevail on that kind of plea, it would be the defendant's burden to show or to prove that at the time of the offenses, he had a severe mental disease or defect, and that he did not know as a result of a severe mental disease or defect the wrongfulness of his actions. The defense, subsequently to their expert rendering that opinion, also filed a motion under revised code section 2929.025, the serious mental illness statute, which is relatively new in the state of Ohio, just beginning in 2021. And under the serious mental illness statute, again, the defendant would have the burden of showing by preponderance of the evidence that he has been diagnosed with one of 4 mental diseases: schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, or delusional disorder. If an expert opines that he has in fact been diagnosed with one of those mental diseases, then he would also have to show that at the time he committed the offenses, that the condition with which he's been diagnosed significantly impaired his ability or capacity to exercise rational judgment in relation to, first, conforming his conduct with the requirements of law, or second, appreciating the nature, consequences, or wrongfulness of his conduct. One of the things that all of the experts considered here is that prior to June 15th of 2023, the defendant was never diagnosed, treated, or prescribed any medication for any mental health condition. The expert hired by defense counsel in this case was Dr. Robert Stenson. The court's expert as to the question of not guilty by reason of insanity, again commonly referred to as NGRI, was Dr. Emily Davis. Despite the defense's contention, the experts did not agree on whether or not the criteria of NGRI, that the defendant met the criteria for NGRI. Both doctors, both Dr. Davis and Dr. Stenson, indicated that it was likely at the time of the offenses the defendant did suffer from a mood disorder. Could have been depression, could have been anxiety, could have been anything or nothing. They really weren't sure. But where the two experts differed was that Dr. Davis opined that the defendant did not meet the criteria for NGRI because he did know the wrongfulness of his actions. Dr. Davis specifically opined that with all of the information considered and reviewed, it was her opinion that despite the defendant experienced some symptoms of severe mental disease, that it was her opinion that he continued to know the wrongfulness of his behaviors in the offenses charged. Although some collateral records suggest a delusional thought process that served as motivation, such as when the defendant claimed he believed he was in hell at the time, there are also behaviors demonstrated by the defendant and commentary that he makes around the time of the offenses, which indicated he continued to know the wrongfulness of his actions. And as you saw in the body-worn camera, those kind of comments would be, tell them I did it, take me to jail. Hey, officers, I'm not mad. I'm not on any drugs. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to run. The dog won't bite you. All of those comments do show that he had an awareness that he knew what was right and wrong at the time, and that he could conform his behavior to that. What's important to note is that neither Dr. Stenson nor Dr. Davis were able to diagnose the defendant during their NGRI evaluation with any specific mental health disease. During all of the evaluations, the doctors all agreed that while the defendant was incarcerated, he exhibited no acute mental health symptoms and received no mental health treatment or medication. And again, as we noted, the various statements that were made by the defendant both on scene, in his interview, and after the fact are not consistent with someone in the throes of delusion. Yeah, go ahead. You're fine. Sorry, you're fine. However, after rendering his opinion as to not guilty by reason of insanity, Dr. Stenson did submit an opinion as to whether or not the defendant suffered from a serious mental illness at the time he committed these offenses. What Dr. Stenson opined essentially was that the defendant was bipolar and that he was unable to appreciate, again, the wrongfulness of his actions or conform his behavior to law. However, as we reviewed Dr. Stenson's report, there was no explanation of how he came to that conclusion of the diagnosis of bipolar, especially since he provided, between the time of his NGRI opinion and his SMI opinion, there was no further testing of the defendant, there were no further interviews of the defendant, there was nothing done other than speaking with the defendant's parents and brother one more time for approximately a total of a half an hour. Additionally, there was nothing in his report that would indicate that his diagnosis of bipolar disorder conformed with the diagnostic criteria as required in the DSM-5, which is kind of the holy grail of psychiatry and psychology. Based on Dr. Stenson's report, the court appointed Dr. Carla Dreyer to conduct a second SMI evaluation of the defendant, and she had a completely different opinion from Dr. Stenson. In her opinion, she noted that it was her belief the defendant did not suffer from a serious mental illness at the time of the offense, which significantly impaired his capacity to exercise rational judgment in relation to his conduct with respect to either conforming his conduct to the requirements of law or appreciating the nature, consequences, or wrongfulness of his conduct. She went on to note that with regard to the statutory criteria, records suggest that the defendant has a history of controlling behaviors as well as poor frustration tolerance and chronic anger, likely related to his underlying personality structure. The available information indicates that the defendant took multiple steps to kill his children, shooting his wife and threatening his stepdaughter in the process. Dr. Dreyer's opinion continued, stating he made statements to indicate that he knew he was killing them. Mr. Doerman's careful execution of the murders, coupled with statements he made to law enforcement after they arrived on scene, indicated that he appreciated the nature of what he did, as well as the wrongfulness and consequences of such. You have all now heard the 911 calls, and you have seen the body-worn camera, and you have seen at least portions, if not all, of the defendant's interview. During the 911 calls, during the body-worn cameras, he is not making the same claims that he only begins to make during his interview when questioned by detectives. You never hear him say, "We're in hell. I have to get to heaven. I have to get you to heaven. I see flames. The devil made me do it." He made no statements that would indicate in any way, shape, or form during his slaughter of his children that would show or indicate that he truly was in the throes of a delusion. This was something that we believe he concocted during the course of his interview. Again, the defendant made a variety of statements to law enforcement which would indicate that he knew what he was doing at the time and that were not consistent with someone who was in the throes of a delusion. If you're in the throes of a delusion and you think, hey, I have to save my boys. I'm doing a good thing by sending them to heaven and helping them escape from hell, you would say that. But instead, during the course of the interview, multiple times, the defendant denies being the shooter. Those kind of statements were made multiple times during the course of the interview, whether he specifically denied it or started to claim that he didn't remember, or maybe he wasn't there, maybe he was at work, or something along those lines. But again, why would you deny doing an act unless you knew it was wrong? At times, again, the defendant claimed not to remember anything about what had happened that day. But then there were other times, specific to his family, his father, his brother, where he made decisions. I remember everything, including why I did that. So there in the interview, he's saying, what happened? I don't know what happened. You tell me, detective. You tell me what happened because I don't know. That's very different than what he says to his mother in a recorded jail call.
10 days later.
10 days later.
You don't need a probably. You took away everything. And you don't remember it. And you know only what they tell you. But she remembers.
I remember everything.
You do? And I'm not talking about that.
No, I swear to God, I did. All the way to the point, all the way to all the reasons why and everything.
So I know that was hard to hear, but in the interview on June 15th, the date he committed these atrocious acts, the defendant's acting like he has no idea what's going on. Just 10 days later, he's talking to his mom, who is, now mind you, they've all met with their attorneys. They've started the discussions of the NGRI defense. They've started discussions about mental health and how that can help him. So to his mom, who's saying, no, you don't remember, he's saying, yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I remember everything, including why I did it. And again, we have reviewed numerous jail calls that the defendant made while incarcerated, and there were multiple times where he made statements that were inconsistent with the statements he made to doctors or on his own behalf in an attempt to mitigate his actions on June 15th. Some of those are, again, calls with his parents and brother.
Oh, the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist when we talked to him. And I love talking to him. Then the captain came and see me. To the psychiatrist. And because I already talked to her, she moved me down to level 1. I was supposed to be close with her. She said it's not affected stuff. Moved me down to level 1. So other cops I was supposed to act close with her. Well, guess what? I didn't get close with her. And David, it was a good time to talk to the psychiatrist. No. What was that? You sit in this grass. You want to. Ain't doing anything no good. Why am I going to go home? She looked at me and she goes, you were bad for what you did.
So, so again, I know that was a little difficult to hear, but in that call, he's talking about 2 days after these events. He's talking about meeting with a psychiatrist, and he's talking about not wanting to meet with her because it's not going to get him anything. So he already knows that he can benefit, depending on what he says, to doctors. And you heard in that that the doctor at the time is trying to determine whether or not he's a threat to himself, whether or not he needs to be at a specific level of supervision at the jail. And one of the things she asked him is, do you feel bad for what you've done? And his response is no. And the next call, please.
Hey, they thought Hitler was being beat, but yeah, I'm back to
So again, in case anyone had any question about whether he knows what he's done is wrong, in this jail call with his brother, again, 2 days after he has just slaughtered his children, he is comparing himself to Hitler and how Hitler made news across the world, and so has he. Sorry, 12 days after these incidents. So within 2 weeks, he's comparing himself to Hitler and saying, he's as big as Hitler. He is internationally known. Look at me.
Thank you, Laura.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we come to the plea. As you know, in the brief remarks I made Friday, the defense came to us on Tuesday morning, offered us life without parole. We brought in Laura Doerman and talked her through this. Wanted to find out what she wanted to do. And again, as I said Friday, this decision was made to prevent further harm to the family. And we know what life without parole means. That means he's never getting out of prison alive. So the sentencing was 3 consecutive life without parole, count 1 for Clayton, count 2 for Hunter, count 3 for Chase, count 18 for Laura for having their rifle pointed at her head. Count 18 for Alexis for having the rifle pointed at her head, and count 20 for Laura for being, among other things, shot in the thumb. We discussed this at press conference with Laura. I can tell you she is grievously injured, so is Alexis. And they have our sorrow, and they will always have whatever aid we can bring to them. But this is a message from Laura to the community. No one who knew the defendant could have imagined the person they knew before June 15th, 2023 committing these acts. They were a normal family. The boys were happy. But she wants everyone to be aware and spread this among your family, friends, loved ones. If you are struggling with thoughts of self-harm or thoughts of harming others, or if you know of anyone who is, please reach out. You will not be judged. Help is available. Call a crisis hotline or call 988 or go to your nearest hospital. Violence is never the solution. Thank you.
Mark, why did you hold this press conference?
To give you additional information on what was going on here, more than we could relate in a few minutes on the courthouse steps.
Does it have anything to do with trying to let the public have a better understanding of why you struck this plea deal with this defendant?
No, I explained that, I think, sufficiently on Friday. It's to let the public know what was going on behind the scenes here and to emphasize the great sorrow we have for this family and how this was something out of the blue. This was lightning from a blue sky. Go ahead. I'll take a couple questions.
Should we still know why Chet did this?
No idea. Don't know why. That will probably never be answered. You look at this nice little family, sweet little family. I can't speculate as to what happened. Can't do it.
And they were getting, you're saying they were a happy family, at least everybody thought. Laura had no
in hindsight.
I'm not going to speak for Laura other than what I know is that they were a happy family. We'll never put a word in her mouth.
Do we know anything specifically about maybe what he told his mother before he went to the clinic? I know he expressed maybe he was having confusion. Was there any specifics about what he said?
I don't recall, but it'll be in the materials. All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Please tell me that wasn't a political stunt. Please tell me that was not a political stunt. Even the press said that. Like, they were like, why did you have this press conference? You could have just put all this stuff out there like normal people do. You could have put it on your own YouTube channel. You could have put it on, just told the press to come pick up their pack. Why did they do that? That's really strange. And I don't know. I don't think that some of the stuff that they put out there, like the 911 call stuff, I'm probably going to trim it before it goes out. There's no reason to hear some of this stuff. But the sad thing is it's out there now because they put it out there to everybody in the world. So I'm going to download this and try to increase the volume on the areas that were hard to hear. More specifically, I want to hear what he said in the jail calls and in the meeting and in the interrogation. So I'll try to get that out there to y'all. This is unbelievable. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't even know why the father did it. I don't, it doesn't make sense. Was it a financial thing? Like he just decided, was it mental? Obviously, it's mental illness. Anybody's going to kill their kids, there's mental illness involved. But to reference himself to Hitler, I need to hear that my own way and see how I can process that. And again, it was so hard to hear in that first recording. So by the time you guys get this, it'll be loud enough for us to hear it. And I don't know. I don't know. I'll put it out there. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. I certainly hope this wasn't a political stunt. Is this guy up for re-election? I certainly hope not. Please tell me it wasn't. I've lost so much faith in the people out there that are supposed to be running the show. I mean, it's just, oh, good Lord. All right, you guys, y'all be good. And I will talk to you very soon.